Awesome. So just on fail fast, I think, so within Amazon, we've got the way we approach decisions is sort of type A and type B decisions. So decisions that, you go through a door, but you can come back out. It's easy. It's not a one-way door. And type B decisions where, once you've gone through the door, this is a one-way door. You can't easily recover from this situation. So I guess for me, what fail fast is all about is about changing decisions that previously were one-way gates, committing to a hardware infrastructure or committing to a system design, and changing those actually from being decisions that, you're committed to into decisions that you can just change. You just go back and you can change again. So just on fail fast, for me, that's what it's all about. So compliance in the cloud. I want to talk to you a bit about, Simone obviously mentioned a number of aspects here, about why the cloud and AWS in particular can be really an asset for you if you're looking to build something, for health customers as well, for a number of customers, because fundamentally the approach we take is we operate all our data centers in a consistent way and it's on time. So, okay, go signal, I guess. So, in a consistent way, and what that means is that really everybody from the smallest startup to, one-man band gets the same security as, the Financial Conduct Authority or Capital One. Everybody gets the same treatment when you're using the infrastructure. So, let's have a look at this a bit. So, this has been mentioned, but especially within the health sector, obviously data sovereignty is a consideration. It's really important where the data goes, especially with what's happening with the EU, etc. It's quite handy to be able to actually put your data in the UK. So that's up and running. I won't spend much time on that. Okay, so let's first have a look at the environment. So what have GDS said about using cloud services? So they've recently published this guidance, and I'll just read a bit out of it, that it's possible for public sector organizations to safely put highly personal and sensitive data in the cloud. So absolutely. Obviously, as with many things, you need to do that in an appropriate manner. So you could put your data in the cloud and do it inappropriately and expose your data, just like you could have physical records lying around in an appropriate manner in a hospital, and that would expose your data. So it's really important when you think about putting stuff in the cloud that you realize that this is somewhere you put stuff, but you have to use it appropriately. So some customers, Simone mentioned as well, so Ministry of Justice, they've got Dave Rogers from the Ministry of Justice has got a great quote that he's given us, and that they've been able to really transform their digital services and move a lot quicker, and also have all the assurances and security that they need. The DVSA, they had a legacy mainframe application for the MOT system, and they moved that to AWS within 10 weeks. So again, it doesn't have to be a very long, tedious process. And the cloud also, through security and compliance, we help you move faster because a lot of the work has been done. Okay. So how do you approach this? So there's a number of cloud security principles that the NCSC, or formerly the CSG, have defined. So I'm not going to read through all of them. That's them. There's a white paper from the CSG that describes what each of these mean, how you should be looking into these elements. What we've done as AWS is we've created a paper that accompanies these principles and given some guidance as to what specifically within AWS helps you achieve the principle that the NCSC advises that you should be looking at. So obviously this is quite a change from the old world where you had very specific control sets, you had pan-government accreditation, systems could be IL3 and IL4 certified, and you could happily just put your stuff in these containers and it's all good. I think I'm really a fan of the new model in terms of people really taking time to understand the risk for their business, for your business or your department or your function, and then designing appropriate controls and being aware of the controls rather than relying on controls that potentially don't exist. I think it's like a false sense of security the old systems kind of gave you. So with that, it really all comes down to this. There's a shared responsibility model, the security of the cloud. So this is the bit that we do. And it's part of the service that you buy from us. So you don't need to go and put a lock on our data center. That's part of the service you buy from us. You don't need to get a security guard to come and stand outside our data center. Again, it's part of the service. Protecting from a network perspective, having firewalls around the system, doing penetration testing, all those things is what you pay us to do for you. Then on top of that, you go and deploy your applications and your environments. And this is where it is super important that you understand when it becomes your responsibility. And this varies a bit depending on the service, but for the core service, it's really when you have control. Basically, if you're in control, you're accountable. So on your firewall, for example, you have full control over that. So it's up to you to define the firewall rules that make sense for your business. That might mean that opening certain ports up to the internet is what's required, or it might mean that you cannot even connect the network that you have in AWS. You can't have it connected to the internet. So it really depends on the service, and it's really important that you understand, firstly, where is this line? If I'm looking at my application and my service, where is this line? And am I doing what I should be doing up here? Then, talking about what we do down here, this is obviously super important for you. So if you do a deployment and you go to an NHS trust and say, I've got this wonderful application, runs on AWS, they're going to say, okay, that's super. We're happy to have a look at it, software as a service, and we want to embrace those kinds of solutions, but you need to give us some assurances that this is operated properly and someone can't just walk into a room and grab a hard drive and walk out with all of my data. So for this part, I'm going to jump into how we do that. So I'll show that in a bit. So what are the key benefits? Obviously, keeping your data safe. So we want to show you all the controls around data security. The other aspect of this is, again, you're in control. So we provide mechanisms for you to do data encryption, and we actually encourage it. You can get to the point where you can literally tick a box and your data gets encrypted. And again, there's no charge for you to do that. So our view is kind of, unless you have a very deep technical reason not to do it, just do it. Just encrypt your data, because there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing it. So we're going to help you meet the compliance requirements, which I'm going to get onto now. And then also the agility and the ability to scale. This is really important, and this is where you sometimes lose touch with security folks, and why I think it's really important to get them involved early. Speak to your accreditor, speak to your security architect, get them in the conversation as early as you can. Because once they see the capabilities that they would have in terms of improved visibility, the infrastructure is code. Somebody can't go and fiddle with a cable somewhere. There is no cable to go and fiddle with. Everything is tracked and everything is code, so it can be managed appropriately. So just coming back to this again, so security of the cloud is basically what we do. How we provide you the proof is we have third-party auditors, so different auditors for SOC, different auditor for PCI. We have them come in, dive deep with us on our platform, and validate that the control set that we have is actually implemented. And they check our evidence, just like any auditor would. They come, they check the evidence that we are operating the platform as we say we are. For some audits, they can also come and do sort of continuous audits or come and do spot checks on us. And we can provide these certifications and the details behind those to you as well. Then security in the cloud, this is up to you. So if you go for your solution, you would basically have to build up a package to say, look, PCI, just as an example, just because it's similar, I guess, in terms of the requirements and the confidentiality requirements to handling patient data. We can prove that from an infrastructure perspective, this is how we do things, and that's acceptable from a PCI perspective. You would then, on top of that, have to prove that the way you do logging is appropriate. Your logs are not logging credit card numbers all over the place, and those are ending up in the clear in an S3 bucket somewhere. Then it doesn't really matter if the infrastructure is great if you don't do the appropriate things on top of it, right? This is quite important. So anybody not clear on shared responsibility? No? Cool. Okay, so I mentioned that. So we'll provide those reports. The key documents, I think for the UK in particular, it's obviously the NCSC Cloud Security Principles guidance. And then we've also published some benchmarks and some very specific guidance in terms of how you should operate your AWS environment, along with the Center for Internet Security. That is really useful. And if you're a hands-on guy, it gets down to what are the AWS commands in the CLI that you need to run to enable this control. So it's just very, very practical guide for you to use. Secure your environment. The compliance reports used to be something that you'd have to sign an NDA with us, request them, and then we'd send you an email with an encrypted PDF. We've now changed that model, so a lot of it now is self-service, so you can go into the console, go into your account, and actually just get access to this. And also because it's continually updated, I think every 6 months or 12 months, depending on the audit, on the compliance regime, those reports get updated and re-audited, so you can now go and get those yourself. So, official workloads on AWS. I think it's worth just a very, very quickly talking. What's the view? What's official here? So really, the latest guidance in terms of data classifications from government is that something is official, secret, or top secret, or somewhere to the right of that. So primarily, our focus around discussions are on official data. The guidance we're publishing is on official data, and this includes all of official. So official sensitive, official with elevated controls, all those elements of it. And basically, official just means commercial best practice. Treat this as you would expect your bank to treat your bank records or your bank data, or any major organization to treat data that is critical to their business. So, again, just a bit of guidance from GDS that a lot of the information can make use of cloud services, but again, also guidance from GDS that you need to be aware of where the line is and how you share information. NCFC have also published some guidance in terms of how you can go about evaluating cloud services. This is available on the link, and I think all the content will be distributed, but that's definitely worth having a look at that and reading through it. And then, again, moving on to more practical guidance. We're all about trying to get you started in an easier way and doing things in a repeatable manner. So we've released version 1 of what we call the UK Official Quick Start. So this is something that we plan to extend on, and we'll continue to grow this. It's basically an implementation of some best practices on how to use AWS services to host applications. So we've got a sample application in there that you can swap out for your own application, but it shows you how the old framework needs to work all around it. Okay, so architecture, I'm an architect, so I need to have an architecture diagram. It basically, you've got segregation between, say, a management VPC. And for those that aren't technical, I'd really encourage you, if you want to talk about this stuff, we have got the Ask an Architect, I think, starting after this. So please come and see one of us, and we'll talk about this a bit deeper. But you can see that you have different networks within this deployment. It's not just one blob of stuff in AWS Cloud. We've got different VPCs. Those VPCs are paired together. We've got a bunch of firewalls here and reverse proxies and all the kinds of stuff you'd expect to see in an on-premise deployment where you're doing things properly as well. So practically, what this is, this package, it's a template. So it's a JSON file that you can take, you can throw it at the platform, and that will deploy the full architecture. It also includes a control set. So this is based on the Center for Internet Security C Cloud Security Controls, CISC, and we've mapped within that to help you get going to say basically these are the controls, the requirements, and this is how this template implements that from, this bit of the CloudFormation is how we address that control. So So this is really handy to refer if you use that as a base. I think it's really important to talk about what it isn't. So this is by no means, a magic container. There's no such thing as a magic container that you can just put your stuff in and forget about security. This is still subject to the shared responsibility model. It's just us providing you with a bunch of guidance. And this is, again, it's just one way to do this on AWS. It's definitely not the only way to do an official workload on AWS. So I can see people in the room that do workloads in different ways on AWS, and that's perfectly fine. This is just an example. Thanks.